to at least allow them to put their case? Second, can he obtain details of all KSF Isle of Man depositors who are UK residents and who may owe tax to the revenue? Can he write to me with details of the numbers of people affected, because they will have automatically been transferred to HMRC by the Manx government? And can he ensure that HMRC deals sensitively and appropriately with people who have lost everything? Will he do everything in his power to ensure that Iceland honours its commitment to these depositors? And will he write to the Isle of Man liquidator and request that he makes himself available in London for a meeting with depositors to fully explain his actions and their options to them? Can he also write to the Isle of Man government and that they press ahead with their compensation scheme for depositors who've lost up to £50,000? Because I think once those people have been dealt with, it will be much clearer the nature and scale of the problem that remains. I cannot overestimate, to my honourable friend, the stress that these people are experiencing. The Samaritans are working very prominently with the website to support people through this period of intense stress. Their lives are in limbo, their plans are on hold, and their futures are uncertain. And I just ask that all parties, UK, Isle of Man and Guernsey governments, the liquidators, the regulators, HMRC, and of course the banks and the Icelandic and UK governments work together to bring this unhappy episode to a speedy and satisfactory resolution.
I'd like to congratulate my honourable friend from Wakefield for securing this adjournment debate, and I'm sure the whole House will have sympathy with the plight of her constituents. She was very generous in giving way, and I'd like to say in advance that I don't intend to give way, given the time constraints, if I'm going to reply to her in this debate. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Icelandic economy has experienced increasing difficulties over recent months. Growth has slowed, the exchange rate has depreciated, and this has been coupled with high inflation and high interest rates. In July, the IMF's mission to Iceland concluded publicly that the Icelandic banking sector faced significant risks. On the 29th of September, the Icelandic government acquired a 75% stake in Glitnir, nationalising Iceland's third largest bank. This was followed by a downgrade by Fitch for all the Icelandic banks and their subsidiaries. On the 6th of October 2008, the Icelandic government passed emergency legislation in an attempt to stabilise the financial system in Iceland. This had immediate force and granted extensive powers to the Icelandic Financial Supervisory Authority to intervene in the financial sector in Iceland. Using the new legislation, the Icelandic authorities subsequently took control of Landsbanki Islands and Capting. Amidst this turmoil, on the 7th and 8th of October respectively, the FSA determined that Heritable, a UK banking subsidiary of Landsbanki, and Capting Singer & Friedlander, a UK banking subsidiary of Capting Bank, no longer met threshold conditions and were in default for the purposes of the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. To protect retail depositors, the Treasury, using powers under the Banking Special Provisions Act, transferred retail deposits in Heritable and KSF's Capting Edge deposit business to ING Direct. The remainder of Heritable and KSF's business entered into administration, with the remaining retail depositors being guaranteed. The government has also committed to protecting in full retail depositors in the iSave brand of the UK-based branch of Landsbanki. This guarantee does not extend to retail deposits with branches or subsidiaries of Landsbanki or Capting, which are located overseas. This guarantee extends only to retail deposits held in the UK. The Treasury also made the Landsbanki freezing order 2008 on the 8th of October. This was because the Icelandic government, its authorities and Landsbanki appeared to be on the brink of action which would be to the detriment of the UK economy, including detrimental treatment of UK depositors and consequential burdens on the banking sector. The freezing order was made under a power contained in the Anti-Terrorism, Crime and Security Act 2001. This act includes a broad range of provisions and is not only about countering terrorism. The power enables the Treasury to make a freezing order where the Treasury reasonably believe that action to the detriment of the UK economy, or part of it, has been or is likely to be taken by a foreign government or resident of a foreign country or territory. The UK's action was not taken on the basis of the anti-terrorism provisions in the Act. On the 9th of October, the administrators of Landsbanki transferred its domestic deposits and a portfolio of assets to match them in full to a new entity, New Landsbanki. The London branch of Landsbanki Islands was left in Old Landsbanki. This action appeared to support our previous concerns about Iceland intending to favour its own domestic creditors, since the transfer is at the expense of non-domestic creditors and it could result in them being left to share in a disproportionately smaller asset pool. Mr Deputy Speaker, the problem with Icelandic banks did not originate in the UK, but within the Icelandic banking system. While the government understands that many people have been affected by the failure of Icelandic banks, oversight of overseas accounts is the responsibility of the relevant regulatory authority in that jurisdiction. As a general principle, arrangements for depositors in banks in overseas territories are a matter for the governments of those territories. As the Chancellor said to the Treasury Committee earlier this week, the British government's obligation must be to depositors who have put their deposits into UK banks. Turning to the specific points raised, it has been suggested that action by the UK authorities caused the failing of Captain Singer and Freelander in the Isle of Man by requiring funds to be moved to the UK sister company, which it promptly shut down. I want to assure the House that this is not how it happened, and I'd like to try and explain how events unfolded. Firstly, I should explain that the business models of many banking operations in the Crown dependencies involve the practice of upstreaming deposits for treasury management by the parent company. Before the 8th of October, KSF Isle of Man had taken to depositing funds with KSF UK, a practice that resulted from concerns that the Isle of Man authorities had about the position of KSF Isle of Man's parent company in Iceland. That is to say, they appear to have determined that placing money with the UK sister company was more prudent than placing the money directly with the parent in Iceland. I understand this action was taken following discussions with the FSA, in which certain aspects of the regime applied by the FSA to KSF UK were described. And I want to say